Hello and welcome to my DFS versus Spectral Shields comparison. I tried to do a physical comparison in like a real example and see which one's better, but it didn't work out exactly as I wanted, and I'll talk about why in a bit. So really this does boil down to my opinion, but I consider my opinion worthwhile and I hope you do as well. And so I do hope you enjoy and I hope it really does help kind of make a decision if you're thinking about which shield to buy. So let's start off with a quick stat comparison and view comparison. So let's start with the view comparison actually. So if you look at this shield, why do we always spin around that way? And I think the Spectral Shield looks a whole lot better than the Dragonfire Shield. I don't know, I just kind of like the blue better. That is my opinion though, so it's not like a definite this way that way kind of thing. That's my opinion though. I think it looks a little more expensive too. It just kind of looks, I don't know, I think it looks better. Now for physical worth in the game, let's compare the stats. So one of the big things about the Spectral Spirit Shield is it has no magic or ranged negative attack bonuses, which the Dragonfire Shield does. So, and obviously you can see that right there. And that's often a very big deal, especially going to a place where you're going to range a mage. You don't want those negative attack bonuses. So that's where the Spectral does have an advantage. Of course, most of those places you're not taking a lot of damage either, so I'll get to that in a bit. But for the defense bonuses, basically the Spectral is worse in almost the majority of stats. Now, this is not true, obviously, in Crush, which I find kind of weird, and they're very comparable in Crush overall, though. And then Magic, where the Spectral really shows its worth with its plus 30 Magic defense bonus. And compared to the Dragonfire Shield's plus 10, and the Spectral with its plus 30, I believe is the highest defensive shield in the game for Magic. And so that really does add the worth to the Spectral Spirit Shield. That's why a lot of people want it, just for the plus 30 magic defense bonus. I'll get onto it in a bit, that where I think that's useful. Now, in the other bonuses, Dragonfire Shield has a plus 7 strength bonus. This is the highest strength bonus of any offhand weapon in the game, or offhand item for a shield slot in the game, followed closely by the Dragon Defender at plus 6. I prefer the Dragon Defender to the Dragonfire Shield, by the way, but for defensive bonus, the Dragonfire Shield obviously comes up out on top. Spectral Spirit Shield does have a plus 3 prayer bonus, not really that big of a deal in most situations. And then weight, which I don't think anybody really cares about for situations that people are fighting. So, and this is a fully charged Dragonfire Shield. So basically, the Dragonfire Shield, when it comes, its stats are 50 lower than this. You have to go to a area that has dragons and charge it up with the Dragonfire shots. So, and that's not hard. Go to like Steel Dragons and just sit there with anti-fire, and it takes a couple minutes. So I tried to come up with a few places where each shield would be useful, and a Dragonfire Shield or DFS is useful particularly where any dragon for people meleeing without super anti-fires. So basically, I have super anti-fire, so I would just use a Dragon Defender. But somebody that doesn't have super anti-fires, a Dragonfire Shield could be very useful because it gives that plus 7 strength bonus. And it also has very high defense bonuses, so if you're not praying melee, then obviously it's useful then. Skeletal Wyverns, you basically need it there unless you're using an Elemental Shield, which I don't really recommend. The Zamorak boss, this is because I prefer praying mage, and the Dragonfire Shield has the highest range defense in the game, so it's very useful there. Saradomin boss, kind of the same reason. And by the way, you need the range defense against the minion is really the reason. And then the Bandos boss, because it has very high range defense and obviously you're praying melee. Now the Spectral Spirit Shield is a little bit different. So there's areas that have mage and range are important to use, but the defense is really still important as well, which I really couldn't think of that many at all, really. And then areas where that mage defense is important and kind of the same thing. The only place that I can really think of that is crucial for would be Armadillo, and that's pretty much it. And then also the Bandos boss, because the mage minion at the Bandos boss tends to hit pretty high, so the Spectral Spirit Shield is a preferred shield there. And with the Spectral Spirit Shield, though, the reason I don't put things like Nex is because Nex hits so high, pretty much no matter what your mage defense bonus is, it's really not that helpful. Really, for those you want an Ellie or a Divine, and the Spectral Spirit Shield isn't one of those. So, no, obviously the comparison I made was between those two shields. The only place that was in common was Bandos, so I took both shields to Bandos. The reason this isn't a very legitimate comparison is because Bandos are hard to do without getting crashed. In my Spectral Spirit, Dragonfire Shield trip, I almost didn't crash at all. My Spectral trip, though, you'll see a couple crashes here, but that was only like half a kill, and it wasn't bad at all. But against the, with my Spectral, I got crashed for like 5 kills, and so it was kind of disappointing, but I couldn't really do anything about it. I tried my best. I went early in the morning and everything, and it still happened. So I'm sorry about that. So this isn't really a very legitimate comparison. But basically, my kind of thoughts about them, and I'll show you the ending inventories. But once again, I got crashed, so it's not a very legitimate thing. I did kind of like the Dragonfire Shield better because you do get a few higher hits in there. You also don't get hit quite as hard as often by the boss, so I found that kind of useful. At the same time, it wasn't as useful as I thought it would be, and you'll see that I actually overall did better with the Spectral Spirit Shield in terms of damage taken. And once again, I don't know how much of that is because I got crashed and how much is just out of pure luck. And even if I didn't get crashed, this still wouldn't be a very legitimate comparison. And here I switch over to the Spectral, but it still wouldn't be a very legitimate comparison because at the end of the day, I have only 16 kills each trip. And so it's like, I need hundreds or possibly thousands to really make a difference. And by then, I'd probably just buy an Ellie or Divine. And so yeah, I would say both these shields are very useful, but it's not really either or. You kind of have to decide what one you really kind of like better. And personally, I like the Spectral more based on its looks. I kind of hope it's useful in something like the Fight Kiln that's about to come out, but we'll see. And overall, I do see it both as being somewhat useful shields. I prefer going to Armadillo anyway, and so that's where I would definitely use a Spectral. Of course, you could use other weapons as well, or other shields as well. And just finally at the end, basically for my trip with the DFS, I had 1 brew left for 16 kills. I used 6 sharks, 3 chilies, and I think I used 26 unicorn scrolls. And that is a lot more than my Spectral trip, which I used, had 3 brews left for 16 kills. I used 10 sharks, 3 chili, and I think I only used like 5 or 7 or something unicorn scrolls. I can't really tell right now. But once again, the Spectral trip had somebody that crashed me for 5 kills. So in kind of a final comparison, I would say this. The DFS is 8 mil. The Spectral is about 30. It is dropping quite a bit though. But at the end of the day, if I'm going to pick one or the other, I'd probably pick the Dragonfire Shield, especially if I don't have super anti-fires. But at the same time, the Spectral is pretty useful as well. But overall, they're both pretty good shields, but they're not the best. The Divine and the Ellie are the ultimate best shields. And so really that's what I probably would go for at the end of the day. But they're good shields kind of like for the less wealthy of us and those that just want something that's pretty good and relatively cheap. And it is a fairly useful shield. I will give it that. Both of them are. However, since I tend to boss a lot more often, kill dragons, stuff like that. I actually think the Spectral probably is more worthwhile overall, just because, as you saw at Bandos, it's a good shield at Bandos, and then at other places, it's also very useful. The only place that I really see the DFS as being more useful than the Spectral all the time is at Zami, and I don't really go there that often at all. So I would say I would go for the Spectral first. But that being said, both are really good shields. Both are very useful, and it really is up to you. On the coolness factor, I would pick the Spectral as well. So that's my opinion, though, and you're welcome to either take it or leave it as you see fit. Well, thanks for watching. I do hope it helped you. I hope you kind of have an idea about which shield you kind of want to get, or whether you do want to get one of these shields at all. I don't think it's necessarily a needed item, since you can really have better items available. But anyway, once again, thank you for watching it. I really do appreciate it. And on Tuesday, probably the fight kiln will be released. I'll try my best to get something out about that. Thursday, a new achievement diary. And then next week, probably a Slayer diary. So subscribe for all of that, and please rate and comment on this video.